3 spine-chilling true tales of summertime horror that will leave you terrified and haunted forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon in Centerville, Ohio, something sinister brewed beneath the ordinary. Sarah, a 34-year-old nurse and single mother, could feel it in her bones. The warm breeze carried the sweet scent of barbecue from the yards around her, but nothing could mask the unease wrapping around her heart. She glanced at the new neighbors next door, their smirking smiles seeming more like grimaces as shadows fell over their faces. Rumors clung to them like a heavy fog. No one knew exactly what to fear about them, but whispers of a dark past swirled through the community like storm clouds about to burst. Days turned into endless afternoons, each more sweltering than the last. It was a suffocating heat that seeped into her very thoughts, making simple joys seem ominous. Ethan, her 12-year-old, had suddenly shed his childhood fears of the dark only to become entranced by it, often claiming he heard whispers amid the trees. Meanwhile, Lily, always imaginative, chatted away with an imaginary friend she insisted lived within the woods. Sarah's heart raced as she envisioned her children caught in something dreadful, a place where dark spirits mingled and reality twisted into nightmare. Then, one evening, while searching for Ethan in the backyard, Sarah stumbled upon something unholy, a weathered doll, dirt-caked and unmoving, with one eye staring blankly into the void. A visceral chill coursed through her. Trembling hands detailed the doll's features, fraying hair resembling ghostly strands, its lopsided smile frozen in time. She shivered, feeling as if the ground beneath her feet had come alive, whispering secrets of a terrifying past of children lost and souls trapped in a realm far more sinister than anyone understood. "Mom, can we go explore the woods?" Ethan's voice, high with excitement, broke her trance. "No," panic surged. "Stay away from there. It's dangerous." Her warnings were met with laughter from her neighbors, comfortable in their barbecues, as if they couldn't see the darkness looming. Just a single mom with an overactive imagination, they'd say. Weeks turned into a creeping dread, each day blurring further into a horrific dream. Now, late at night, whispers echoed through Sarah's house, dragging her from sleep. Names in the dark, resonating with a familiarity that chilled her bones. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just the other night, in the heavy silence, Sarah followed the echoes out to the yard. The shadows danced around her, taunting her with glimpses of movement. She called out Ethan's name, heart racing like wild horses, dread tightening her throat. And then, in that choking darkness, she saw him standing at the edge of the trees, something lurking behind him, waiting. A figure loomed, dark and featureless, its presence suffocating. As the temperatures dropped more spectacularly than midsummer should allow, Sarah felt the scream clawing at her throat. Was it not just the woods that felt haunted? It was everything. Every gleeful laugh outside turned into a reminder of what could be at stake. Her children were they caught in a dreadful game, believing in an imaginary friend meant to lead them toward shadowy horrors lurking beneath the cheerful facade of suburban life? What began as a lazy summer day had twisted into a heart-pounding nightmare, where every step forward felt like a step away from safety. And in that moment, she realized the real terror wasn't in the shadows. It was in what lay ahead, threatening to tear her family apart forever. Sarah's breath hitched as she stood frozen, caught between the light of her home and the dark embrace of the trees. Ethan was beckoning, his face illuminated by the flickering light from the patio. But the expression in his eyes was unsettlingly blank, almost as if he were no longer her son but a mere shell. "Come here, Ethan." Panic surged through her veins, but a part of her felt rooted in place, as if the ground was pulling her back, anchoring her to her fear. The figure behind him, dark and shapeless, shifted ever so slightly, elongating like a shadow stretching towards her. She clenched her fists, forcing her legs to move. She had to reach him. "Mom, wait!" Ethan's voice slithered through the air, thick with something unnatural. As she rushed toward him, something sharp pierced her thoughts, the realization that this wasn't just about protecting Ethan anymore. Lily had slipped out too, drifting down the hallway toward the open door, oblivious to the danger outside. "Lily, stay inside!" Sarah screamed, her voice cracking. She could almost see the tendrils of night reaching for her children, curling around them with silent promises of secrets long buried. A terrible intuition gnawed at her. Whispers weren't mere phantoms. They were luring her children into a dark abyss. Horrified, she turned her focus back to Ethan. "You need to come to me now. It's not safe." But the persistent tug of that figure held him entranced. With pounding hearts, the whispers escalated, swelling into a cacophony, a symphony of lost children calling her name. Sarah felt ice crawling down her spine, desperately resisting the urge to listen. "Stop it!" she shouted, her lungs burning with anger and fear as she surged forward, pulling Ethan from the edge. The moment Sarah reached him, the air thickened, swirling with energy that felt malevolent. The dark figure's form flickered. It was a mass of shadows with ephemeral outlines, eyes glinting like shards of broken glass in the night. "What do you want?" Sarah yelled into the darkness, trying to keep her voice steady for Ethan, clenching his trembling hand. She believed they could escape back into the light, but doubt crept in, whispering treacherous thoughts. "Ethan, come play," a voice crooned, barely audible yet chilling enough to freeze her heart. It was high and sweet, almost like Lily's laughter, but twisted, steeped in hunger. Terror bubbled in her chest as she tightened her grip on Ethan. "We have to go. Now." But her words were drowned in the murmur of the entity, a sickly sweet lure that said, "Come back, stay with us, Ethan." Sarah pulled him closer, her heart racing. In that moment, a high-pitched giggle shattered the tension. Lily stood in the shadows of the door, her eyes reflecting the haunting light of the woods, entranced by something unseen. "Mom, can we play with them?" she chimed, oblivious to the escalating danger. "No!" Sarah screamed, reality crashing down on her like a tidal wave. The shadows shifted, hungry and electric, and suddenly, the realization hit her like a slap. The darkness wasn't just a figment or twisted imagination. The whispers felt tangible, and they wanted her children. Desperation turned into instinct as she lunged, covering Ethan's ears with her hands, ignoring the stares of her neighbors who now reluctantly peeked over their fences, their faces pale in confusion. Did they sense the threat lurking just beyond the tree line? Or were they too blind to the unfolding horror? "Come! Come!" The shadows beckoned, their voices weaving into her mind, threatening to pull her children under their spell. Terrified, her heart racing, Sarah dragged Ethan back toward the house. And in a moment of sheer panic, she shouted, "You will not take my family." Yet as they turned to flee, a cold wind swept through, and the ground beneath them seemed to ripple with laughter. With terror gripping her, she realized they hadn't escaped at all. Behind them, the darkness surged forward, hungry. And as Sarah slammed the door shut, the whispers followed, lingering on the threshold, promising that this was only the beginning. What awaited them now? What secrets from a forgotten past were about to resurface, threatening to expose the truth that lay beneath Centerville's quaint facade? The door slammed with a finality that echoed, but the whispers outside didn't fade. Instead, they strengthened, wrapping around Sarah's mind like a vice. She turned, breathless, to Ethan and Lily, both staring wide-eyed, transfixed by the terror that now blazed in the kitchen with them. "Close the curtains," Sarah ordered, her voice firm despite the fear clawing at her throat. As Ethan stumbled forward, obeying, Sarah instinctively moved to the living room. She glanced out the window. The dark figure was still there, lingering at the edge of the trees, watching them with malevolent intent. It shifted, darkness swirling like a cyclone, and a pulsing feeling of dread washed over her. "Mom, what is happening?" Lily's voice was small and carried the innocence of a child not yet tainted by the ugly truth. The question cut Sarah deeply. igniting her protective instincts. Was it still safe to be here? To be alive, to breathe? Nothing, sweetie. Just stay close to me. Panic drummed in her ears as she faced them, glancing at the door, willing it not to open. Behind her, the shadows pressed closer, emboldened by their confinement. Sarah felt their presence, a weight on her shoulders, as if they were inching into the home, seeking a way inside. She could almost hear their hushed laughter weaving through the silence, mocking her futile attempts to shield her family. "Ethan, you need to be brave for your sister," she said, her voice steadying for his sake more than her own. "We're gonna figure this out." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The bulb above them buzzed ominously. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting in ways that moved like living things. The air felt thicker, laden with a putrid scent that invaded her senses. "Mom, I can hear them," Ethan whispered, his eyes darting toward the door. "They're saying things, bad things." "What do you mean, Ethan?" Anxiety twisted Sarah's stomach, uncertainty tightening its grip. "They want us to play with them," his voice trailed off, hesitantly. "What happens if we play?" Lily, for the first time, broke her stare and looked at her brother. "They said we'd be free," Ethan murmured, his voice distant, as if he were losing touch with reality. A chill skittered down Sarah's spine. "Don't listen to them." She grabbed Ethan's shoulders, shaking him gently. His eyes cleared for a moment, confusion sparking behind their usual brightness. Fearful decisions flooded her mind. "We have to leave. No, we can't go outside. We can't let them win." Yet deep down, the seductive song of freedom pulled at her, made her wonder what it would cost to resist. Another flicker of darkness pooled into the room. The whispers turned frantic, a cacophony of taunts and promises, blending with the rising wind outside. Was it the wind? Or were they calling her name now? Was she losing her grip as well? The kitchen door rattled, soft at first, then forceful, as if something were testing its hold. "Mom!" Lily cried, fear finally breaking through her innocence, and Sarah's heart shattered at the sound. "Stay behind me." Sarah pushed them backward, her body a shield. The trembling wood of the door seemed to groan under the weight of something pressing against it. With breath held, they waited. Every moment stretched like the silence after a storm, when the world held its breath in anticipation. Then the door shuddered violently, rattling against the frame before a heavy thud shook through, sending echoes reverberating into the silence. Like a warning that I end that fraction of a moment, realization dawned. Whatever was outside was not just after her children. It wanted her, too. It wanted them all. "Sarah." A voice called softly from within the shadows, and it sounded so familiar. With her heart pounding madly in her chest, she felt an icy swirl of dread. "What do you want?" she whispered, almost too afraid to breathe. Yet, as the door shook again and the whispers swelled, she was struck by a chilling thought. What if the darkness wasn't just an enemy? What if it was part of her, too? Another thud. This time the front door splintered, cracking under pressure. "Run!" Sarah screamed, as the world fell apart into utter chaos. In those frantic seconds, she knew they had to escape. But where would they go? Would there be anywhere left to hide? Or had the darkness already claimed them? The door burst open, pouring shadows into the room, and as they advanced, a terrible question loomed, curling around her thoughts. Had they left the light behind forever? What would become of them in the cold embrace of the night? The shadows surged into the room, thicker than smoke and darker than the deepest night. Sarah shielded Ethan and Lily with her body, her heart racing so hard it threatened to burst. The air grew colder, tinged with an unbearable tension that swallowed the warmth of the room. A shrill laugh echoed from the depths of the darkness, sending shivers along her spine. "Stay close," she ordered, her voice cracking but resolute. She backed toward the kitchen counter, desperately searching for anything to defend them. The whispers intensified, weaving through the chilling air, growing into an unbearable din. "Join us. Play with us." "Shut up," Sarah screamed, her ears ringing as she clutched a heavy frying pan. Her knuckles ached as her grip tightened. She could feel the energy in the air shifting, a hard pull toward the shadows that promised both safety and damnation. Ethan stared wide-eyed, his face ashen. "What do we do?" he pleaded, voice trembling. "Just listen to me. We don't give in." But as she spoke, doubt gnawed at her resolve. The shadows flickered, solidifying into grotesque forms with eyes glowing like embers, taunting her with twisted expressions. Panic clawed at her throat as isolation curled around them, a silence so deep it devoured hope. With each pulse of fear, she felt the shadows encroaching, a thick mist, wrapping around her like icy hands. "You can't protect them forever, Sarah," one voice hissed, low and dripping with malice. It sounded all too familiar, a whisper from her past that sent her heart into her stomach. "Leave us alone," she shouted back, firing a pan in their direction, but it cut through nothingness, offering no resistance against the creeping tide. Lily whimpered, clinging to Ethan, their small forms trembling together. The creatures inched closer, silhouettes merging into a shifting mass of darkness, mocking and hungry. In the back of her mind, she could still hear the urges, the promises wrapped in sinister lullabies. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's voice was soft, breaking through Sarah's defensive thoughts. "I know, baby, I know." A lump formed in her throat. "But we have to be brave." Each heartbeat resonated in her ears, drumming louder than the chaos closing in. A dark figure lunged forward, melding into a startled shape of shadow and sin, and Sarah swung the pan again, desperation fueling her strength. It connected, if only for a moment, the creature screeching as it recoiled. Yet the cacophony grew louder, more figures, more tormented spirits emerging from the depths. "Let us play," they cried, a chorus of voices both sweet and sinister, coaxing, taunting. The merrier. "Stop it," Sarah yelled, tears blurring her vision. "We won play." Yet as if her defiance fueled their hunger, the shadows surged forward, transforming the room into a swirling vortex of darkness. The frantic sound of her children's breaths mingled with the chilling laughter, creating a terrible symphony that echoed in her head. "Mom!" Ethan shouted, pointing to the back doorway. "The basement." Desperation cut through the madness. "Go!" Sarah shouted. "Now!" She pushed them towards the door, heart pounding like a war drum as she faced the oncoming wave of shadows. Sarah, a familiar voice lured her back, sharper than the others, slicing through her maternal instincts. "Come play with us." The figure swirled to a more human shape, a face almost familiar but twisted by malice. "You knew me once. You need me now." "No," she screamed, forcing them forward. "We will not play." The shadows erupted around her, darkness closing in, blocking the way. With her pulse racing, she glanced at her children, and for a brief moment, she saw a reflection of her own fear in their eyes. Then, with one desperate shove, she propelled them toward the basement door. The shadows lunged, reaching for her, greedily wrapping their fingers around her wrist. "Mom!" they cried, as she was pulled away from the light, her grip on the world slipping. "Go, go!" she shouted. "Don't look back." The door slammed shut behind them, cutting off the screams, leaving Sarah enveloped in darkness. But the push of fear twisted inside her, demanding to know. Would they find the light again, or had they just sealed their fate in darkness forever? As the silence swept through the house, Sarah was left with only questions and the uncertainty of what lay ahead loomed, darker than before. Would the shadows give chase, or had they already won? The basement was a small, dank space, thick with the smell of mold and old, rotting wood. As Ethan and Lily stumbled down the stairs, the door slammed shut with a deafening thud, a sound that echoed in the hollow chamber. Sarah's heart raced as she turned, her back pressed against the splintered wood. Darkness wrapped around her like a shroud, but she could still hear Ethan's and Lily's panicked breaths. "Mom, what is happening?" Ethan's voice trembled, the weight of tension nearly suffocating. Sarah whispered, "We have to be quiet. They can hear us." The shadows outside thrashed against the door, hungry for their fear. There was a clatter from above, heavy footsteps shaking the ceiling. The sounds of things scratching and slithering echoed ominously in the gloom, making Sarah's skin crawl. It was worse than she imagined, much worse. Do you think they're gone? Lily's voice was barely a whisper, fragile and small. Swallowing hard, Sarah turned to her children. I don't know, but we need to stay quiet, and a scraping noise cut across her words, warmer than the air alive, as if something above had breached the darkness, tearing the room apart. She peered up into the narrow staircase, but all she could see were shades flickering like candles, dancing on the walls. Mom! Ethan whimpered, gripping Lily's hand tight. I'm scared. Me too, Lily added, her voice breaking. Tears spilled down her cheeks, illuminating her fear in the dim light. Suddenly, the figures melded into the air, dark shapes twisting and curling into the basement with agonizing slowness. Their eyes glowed brighter, almost blinding her as they drew nearer. Play with us, they whispered, the sound like nails on such a promising surface, scraping their wishes into the cavernous dark. Leave us alone, Sarah yelled, raising the frying pan she barely managed to bring with her. It felt like a flimsy shield against the encroaching shadows. We just want to have fun, the shadows laughed, echoes of familiar voices intertwining. So many games to play, shut up, Sarah screamed, swinging wildly into the black void. But the creatures evaded her strike, taunting her with their laughter. She felt impotent, a desperate mother trapped in a circle of madness. Mommy, what do we do? Ethan's voice cracked, panic ringing through her like a bell tolling. Each breath felt like a hollow echo, reverberating in the cramped space, every sound amplifying the terror. We need to find a way out, Sarah said, biting back a sob. She stumbled backward, seeking a corner, scanning the room desperately for an escape route. There's got to be something. Tension tightened. There was something heavy in the air, a pressure that sent chills racing up her spine. Sarah knelt to search under the old wooden shelves, feeling the rough boards against her fingertips when her hand brushed against something cold and metallic. A flashlight. Yes. It flickered to life, illuminating the basement. Shadows scattered momentarily, but they quickly regrouped, furious and relentless. Look, she shouted, pointing the beam desperately toward that dreadful ceiling. It was endless blackness filled with those monstrous eyes. We can't let them. A loud crash from above interrupted her. The house creaked and groaned under assault. The shadows became frantic, pouring in like water through cracks, their laughter taking on a terrifying edge. You cannot escape. You cannot hide. A raw panic ignited inside Sarah. Run, she shouted as she grabbed Ethan and Lily's hands tightly, their fingers clasped together. But this basement felt endless, twisting endlessly around them. Mommy, where do we go? Lily asked, her voice barely audible through the rising chaos. There was no way out, yet the door they came through loomed ahead, still barricaded by shadows struggling to break free. Over there, Ethan shouted, pointing to a small window at the far end of the basement, half covered by grating and dirt. It's too high, Sarah said, but her voice was filled with urgency. We have to try. With hearts full of dread, they made their way to the window, each step bouncing back echoes of their breathing. But just as they neared the escape, the shadows writhed and whispered hellish laughter. Let us play a different game. As Sarah scrambled to lift Lily up to the window, a scream lodged in her throat. Shadows descended faster, weaving into a terrifying tapestry. Would they make it, or would the shadows consume them all? The air thickened. Just as the first icy fingers wrapped around her ankle, Sarah lunged upward. Darkness bounced everywhere. A bitter silence held the breath of uncertainty. What lay beyond the window? Freedom? Or a deeper nightmare waiting to pull them back? In that moment of despair, amidst the cacophony of shouts and sinister whispers, she felt the unmistakable tug of their fate shifting once more. The moment Sarah lunged for the window, her heart pounded against her ribs like a drum of impending doom. The oppressive darkness howled around them, the shadows pulling back beneath the floorboards like a living entity waiting for its chance to strike. Mom! Ethan's voice sliced through her panic. Help me! She twisted to see him, still on the ground, his face twisted in fear. Lily's small frame swayed in Sarah's grasp, her eyes wide, glistening like a deer caught in headlights. With a fierce determination, Sarah yanked Lily up and hoisted her onto the last few inches of the window ledge. "Hold on tight," she commanded, her voice cracking as she felt the ice-cold grasp of shadowy fingers curl around her ankles. "Mommy!" Lily cried. It was a sound filled with terror, a sound that struck at something deep within Sarah. "Come on! Come on!" She frantically pushed Lily toward freedom, the flashlight's beam wavering as she fought against the dark force tearing at her body. Sweat trickled down her back like ice water. "Mom! I can't hold on!" Lily shouted as the shadows closed in, growing more frenzied and wild, their whispers intertwining into a grotesque symphony. "Ethan, get to your sister," Sarah barked, her voice rising to a fever pitch. She felt like she was watching a nightmare unravel, her children's safety dangling on the precipice of darkness. Ethan scrambled, lunging for the window, his small hands outstretched. "Just a little more." Sarah felt another tug, sharper this time, pulling her down, pulling her deeper into the swirling mass of shadows that threatened to consume them whole. Every ounce of her strength poured into keeping her footing. A strangled cry escaped her lips as one of the shadows clawed at her cheek, sending a vicious slice across her skin. The pain shot through her and fueled an ember of rage. "You will not take them," she bellowed, swinging the flashlight wildly, desperate to keep the encroaching nightmare at bay. Using the last vestiges of her strength, she thrust Ethan upward toward Lily, his small body climbing the wall of chaos. Almost there, Lily squeaked, her little fingers grasping Ethan's shirt, pulling him closer. A deafening roar erupted as the shadows murmured violent threats, surrounding Sarah with a suffocating embrace. "Join us," they screeched, their voices rising in fervor, blending into an eerie wailing noise that could burst eardrums. Just as Ethan finally clambered on top of Lily, a blinding light erupted in the basement, spewing out of the open window like a force separating the dark from the light. The shadows recoiled, hissing into the corners, unwilling to withstand the brightness. "Mom!" Ethan's voice was a lifeline, a tether that pulled her back from the brink. "Please!" She felt the shadows' grip slacken, but their claws still dug at her skin, relentless. "Jump!" Lily urged, her small face illuminated in the glow. Sarah, drawing in a furious breath, twisted free from the shadows as courage surged through her. She launched herself toward the open window, the warmth and light wrapped around her like a gift as she let out an agonized scream. Breaking free from the darkness that had tried to swallow her whole, she landed hard, rolling out onto the grass as Ethan and Lily tumbled after her. They gasped for air, the cool night filling their lungs. As they lay on the ground, trembling, Sarah turned to see the basement door, the only entrance to their hell, standing behind them, shaking as if something within wanted out, something that was not done playing its game. But there was one final sound, one final whisper that carried on the wind. "We're not finished yet." The chill of dread settled in the pit of Sarah's stomach. How could they escape when the nightmares still lingered? What more did the shadows want from them? Would this be the last they'd see of the horrors? Or would their return mark the beginning of something even more unfathomable? The air was heavy with tension as Sarah staggered to her feet, her pulse still racing. The moonlight bathed the yard in a ghostly white glow, illuminating the faces of her children, wide-eyed, breathless, and raw from the experience. Each moment stretched painfully as they took stock of their surroundings, as if the dark would decide to lunge at them again at any second. "Mom, we need to go now," Ethan urged, tugging at her hand. There was an urgency in his voice that sent a shock through Sarah. She glanced back at the basement door, its wooden frame trembling almost imperceptibly, the faintest sound of scraping echoing from within like a sinister invitation. "Not yet," Sarah whispered, her eyes locked on the door, unable to shake the feeling that something wasn't over. They had escaped physical captivity, yet something darker loomed over them, hidden in the shadows of their very own home. Lily's voice broke through the silence. "What is in there? Why does it want us?" Her innocent question sent a chill down Sarah's spine. It was one thing to protect them from evil, but another to explain it. "I don't know, sweetie," Sarah replied, swallowing hard. "But we can't let it take us again." She needed to maintain her composure, for them. Ethan, shifting nervously on his feet, peered towards the door as if expecting it to burst open. "What are we gonna do, Mom? We can't stay here." The air thickened once more, heavy with the brewing sense of dread. Just as Sarah was about to respond, a loud bang resonated from the basement, reverberating through the walls like a fist pounding. The door rattled violently, and the children screamed, clinging to her, fumbling for the flashlight that had rolled away. She finally wrestled it back into her grasp, pointing it toward the basement door, illuminating the frames of darkness that flickered in and out, as if the shadows themselves were taunting her, daring her to draw closer. "Stay back," she shouted with authority, squared her shoulders and taken a step forward. But as she did, the ground beneath her felt unstable, like it was shifting, teetering on the edge of catastrophe. Ethan's voice was shaky, tear-filled and pleading. "Mommy, don't go near it," shrieked Lily, her small hands pressed tight against her ears as if to block out the horror. "I have to know," Sarah insisted, her voice low yet determined. Her feet moved almost of their own accord. Drawing closer, she could hear whispering soft, inviting, seducing. Join us," it called, like a lover's promise entwined with dread. Suddenly, the basement door flew open, unleashing a gust of frigid air that cut through her like a knife. A figure stood poised in the shadows, indistinguishable but decidedly present. "Come play," it hissed, the voice both childish and ancient, sparking a primal fear within Sarah that twisted her gut. "Get back," Sarah shouted, shining the flashlight into the darkness, bracing herself, but it only revealed a swirling mass of shadows writhing around, as the figure seemed to morph with each heartbeat. "Mom, Mom!" Ethan cried again, and that plea propelled her into action. Grabbing both children's hands, she yanked them back toward the trees, back towards any semblance of safety. As they stumbled forward, the whispering grew in intensity, a cacophony of voices mingling with laughter, echoing in Sarah's mind. "You can't escape, it's only just begun." As the night wrapped itself around them, she could feel the shadows lurking, drawing ever closer, like a predator closing in on its prey. Fear struck her heart with a heavy fist, and she knew with gut-wrenching certainty, they were not free yet. "What will we do?" Ethan's question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of uncertainty that all three of them felt. Over her shoulder, Sarah could just glimpse that terrible darkness now pooling at the basement door, bubbling like a restless ocean under stormy skies. Before they could break into a full run, she heard a new sound, a soft, childlike giggle echoing from the depths of the basement. This sound cut deeper, crawling under her skin as terror twisted it into something unearthly. Was it just a trick? Or was it a taunt? They needed to act fast, but could they ever outrun this? What else would come out of that door, and what twisted games awaited them next? The world beyond was still alive with the promise of horror, waiting patiently for them to return. With terror thrumming in her veins, Sarah pulled her children tighter against her. The playground of laughter, swift darkness, and cold fear enveloped them like a suffocating shroud. The whispers escalated, crawling through branches and brush, promising betrayal laced with mockery. She squeezed Ethan's hand, feeling his heart pounding faster than her own. They could not confront that door again, not now. "We have to keep moving," she urged, voice a strained whisper floating in the chilled air. The forest loomed ahead, a cascade of shadows fluttering and beckoning from every angle. "Mom, what if it follows us?" Lily questioned, her features pale against the stark moonlight. Those innocent eyes mirrored pure, unfiltered fear, piercing through the darkness in a way that made Sarah's heart break. "If it does, we'll be ready," she replied, forcing a resolve she didn't quite feel. Each step felt as if she was carving through unseen barriers as the whispers pooled behind them, casting tendrils of anxiety that threatened to choke her. The three of them slipped further into the trees, branches scraping against their skin like clutching fingers from the blackened void. The distant giggle echoed again, now closer, sliding through the underbrush with the ease of smoke. She could almost see it coiling around the trees, just out of sight, bidding her to return. "Mommy, I can't do this," Ethan cried sharply, his voice cracking. I don't want to play anymore. Neither do I, Sarah confessed, her eyes scanning the dark. But we have to keep going until we find help. The air shifted, the silence broken by a snap, something sharp and unintended breaking beneath unseen weight. Each of them froze, breaths caught in their throats. The rustling grew closer, a creature lurking just beyond sight, in the roots and fallen leaves. Stay close, she urged, stepping deeper into the trees as a college of shadows swarmed behind them. With every heartbeat, Sarah felt her breath sharpen, boiling over with the heaviness of impending doom. They weaved through the trunks, a serpentine maze grown thick with menace. Just as an expanse opened up ahead, a sensation of release washed over Sarah. It felt for a moment as if they had escaped. Perhaps there was safety here. The moon above became a reassuring light. However, the moment dimmed when she realized they had stumbled into a clearing. Among the wreckage of fallen branches and overgrown weeds lay remnants of what appeared to be a playset, dilapidated yet eerily intact. She rushed their way into the clearing, shielding her children from whatever lingered. Look, it's a swing, Lily pointed, her voice tinged with innocence even amidst the shadows. A beautiful, rusted swing set stood alone, swaying gently even with no wind to guide it. No, Sarah said firmly. We're not playing. We need to, but her words faltered as a delightful laughter rang out, genuinely childlike yet laced with something sinister, cutting through the tension that coiled in her stomach. Come play with us. It beckoned, the sound weaving its way through the air, wrapping around them like fetters. Suddenly, the swing began to move, creaking high and wide, as if an unseen force delighted in inviting them closer. Mom, please, Ethan's voice trembled, a plea wanting to seep away from despair. Sarah felt a shiver lace its way up her spine, the shadows around them thickening, portions of darkness pulling tighter. Run, she screamed, her instincts roaring to life as her feet found a new urgency. She turned, dragging Lily by the hand, Ethan trailing close as they made their way back into the entangled forest. Behind them, the giggles morphed into shrieks, as if they were infuriated by their escape. Each step forward felt like a defiance against a weighty presence, the very fabric of the night pulling against them. Then came the unmistakable sound of something heavy crashing through the trees, a force that sent branches cracking, pursuit clear and inevitable. Heart pounding, Sarah dared not look back, the scent of panic sharp on her tongue. Faster! Don't look! But shadows closed in relentlessly as terror clung to them. She felt the dark hounds of night snapping at their heels, taunting with every footfall. What awaited them in the fluttering darkness? Would they find sanctuary, or join the laughter echoing in that forsaken basement forever? The wilderness of horror remained alive, quick to consume those who dared challenge its depths. Branches lashed at Sarah's face, each retreating step pushing them deeper into a chaotic swirl of dark limbs. The air felt tighter, as if the forest was shrinking to contain them, its breath foul and pressing down on their shoulders. Keep moving, she urged, her voice shaking, but her heart surged with a frantic hope. Ethan's small hand gripped hers, trembling, while Lily stumbled slightly, struggling to keep up, her soft whimpers breaking through the tension-laden silence. Sarah glanced back, her fear a heavy anchor weighing her down. It was there something dark and amorphous trailing just at the edge of her vision, drawn to the raw fear radiating from them. The laughter swelled again, malevolent and bright, wrapping around them like barbed wire. They dashed through the undergrowth, desperate to escape the cacophony of chaos behind. Mom, Ethan cried, his breath hitching between sobs. What if it gets us? It won't, she yelled back, but even her own voice felt hollow. She didn't believe it, not truly. The shadows gained speed, whispering and taunting, each echo a reminder of their impending doom. They broke free from the entanglement of trees into a narrow path, a fraying hope sparking inside Sarah's chest. Moonlight poured down, providing a slant of silver between the branches, illuminating their path with a deceptive calm. This way, kids, she commanded, wading into the open space. But the air thrummed with a new kind of dread. The shadows had not relented, They were lying in wait. An intense silence pulled taut around them, a tension that felt alive and watching. Sarah felt the hairs on the back of her neck rise. Her eyes darted left and right, trying to catch any movement. Time felt distorted, stretching in paranoia. "Mommy!" Lily sobbed, her voice cracking like thin ice underfoot. "I want to go home. Just a little further, sweetheart. We'll find our way back, I promise." Sarah forced a comforting smile, but it felt brittle, tentative, more for herself than her children. Suddenly, a chilling sound emerged from the gloom behind a long, drawn-out moan that sent ice skittering down her spine. It echoed and recoiled, swirling around them like a sinister wind that stung their skin. "What was that?" Ethan breathed, voice wavering with fear. "They're just sounds of the woods. Ignore them." But her words felt flimsy against the enveloping horror. In her gut, she knew they weren't alone. Something was hunting them. "Mom!" Lily's voice broke through again, pointing into the darkness ahead. A pair of eyes glimmered, a dull, soulless light hovering just beyond the trees, fixated on them. It blinked slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment, the palpable fear spilling from the trio in shivering waves. "Run!" Sarah shouted, the primal instinct of a mother kicking into hyperdrive. The children didn't hesitate. They bounded down the path, their small feet pounding in sync with Sarah's desperate strides. The distance blurred. She could dimly hear the thing chasing them, an awful combination of laughter and wails mingling in a cacophony that chilled her blood. Each step pumped adrenaline through her veins, the fight to survive propelling them forward. A flash of light caught her eye, faint, flickering, like a beacon in this nightmare. "Over there," she cried, pointing toward the light, urging her children faster. But as they closed in, the glow transformed into a shadowscape, swirling and twisting, revealing a tangle of limbs and common objects. A memory glimmered on the edge of consciousness, something familiar but wrong. The laughter grew louder, more frantic. No longer just a game, it dripped with malice. In her heart, Sarah could feel the pulse of something ancient, primal, feeding off their fear. The flickering light dimmed, swallowed by darkness. "Stay close, hold on," she yelled, but a jarring realization pierced through her panic. The soft pull of shadows was too strong. The forest seemed to twist, compressing around them, revealing nothing but an endless dark. But as they darted along the newly revealed path, they stumbled onto what appeared to be an old road, cracked and overgrown. A faint shimmer danced at the edge of their vision, a promise of escape, or perhaps another trap. "Mom, it feels wrong," Ethan's quaking voice quivered. "Trust me, just keep running." The shadows surged, hastening their pursuit like a pack of ravenous wolves. Would they reach the light in time? The laughter erupted again, mingling with cries that tore at Sarah's resolve. It wasn't just her life at stake anymore. It was the lives of her children. There had to be an end to this horror. Or do they become another whispered tale lost to the night? With one last push, they barreled toward the shimmering hope, but the shadows grew thicker, eager to swallow them whole. Would they find salvation on the road ahead? Or would the night consume them, leaving only silence in its wake? As Sarah, Ethan, and Lily sprinted down the old road, the dark exhilaration of terror pulsed through them, driving them forward. The soft glow at their destination flickered like a candle in the wind, barely holding on against the shadows swirling all around. "Almost there," Sarah shouted, her breath coming in ragged gasps. But even as they ran, the darkness loomed closer, closing in like a predator, hungry and relentless. Each footfall echoed in the silence, a heartbeat amplified in the night. "What if it catches us?" Ethan's fear rang sharp and clear, tugging at the edges of Sarah's resolve. "It won't," she insisted, tightening her grip on their hands. "Just keep going." The light ahead brightened, an otherworldly gleam, and Sarah felt something deep within stir, a surge of hope churning alongside fear. As they barreled closer, the shadows writhed, twisting like angry snakes to ensnare them. "Look," Lily shouted, pointing ahead. "There's something there." It was a small cabin, weather-beaten yet inviting, nestled among the trees. The light flared from inside, warm and golden, casting just enough light to push back the darkness. With a final burst of energy, Sarah bolted forward, her children right behind her. She slammed her shoulder against the door, flinging it open. The moment they crossed the threshold, the shadows recoiled, hissing angrily as if burned by the brightness that spilled from within. "Come on," she urged, shoving the door shut just as a chilling roar erupted outside, shaking the cabinet's very foundation. The darkness rattled against the wooden door, furious at being denied its prey. Inside, it felt like stepping into another world. It smelled of fresh wood and wildflowers. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows that moved harmlessly across the walls. "Mom, are we safe?" Lily's voice trembled, but her gaze remained fixed on her mother, searching for reassurance. "We're safe here," Sarah said, though uncertainty gnawed at her heart. She turned, scanning the interior for anything that might offer more than just momentary refuge. "We need to think." Suddenly, the room shifted. A soft, knowing laugh echoed around them, familiar yet twisted. It slithered into her ears like a summer breeze turned foul. "You thought you could escape the shadows now formed a grotesque figure just beyond the threshold. Hiding one tea keep you safe," it taunted, its voice reverberating with a mix of childlike glee and malevolence. "You belong to us. You always have." Ethan shuddered, grasping Lily's hand in a white-knuckled grip. "Mom, make it go away. We need to fight," Sarah affirmed. Feeling a furious surge of love and protective instinct, she wouldn't lose them. "Not here, not now. We want to play your games," she yelled into the darkness. Her voice echoed, defiant and fierce. The shadows momentarily paused, shifting uncomfortably as if disturbed by her bravery. Taking a deep breath, Sarah grabbed a nearby lantern and brandished it like a weapon. "You want us? You'll have to face the light." A flash of realization sparked in her mind. This wasn't just a physical fight. It was also a duel of wills. The shadows drew closer, twisting more rapidly now, combining into one massive black form, and the air thickened, almost suffocating. "We want what you want, everyone plays," it hissed, distorting the innocence of childhood into something grotesque. "No." Sarah's voice rang loud, echoing with strength she didn't know she had. "My children are not playthings." She raised the lantern high, the light spilling out like a sunbeam piercing through the dark. In that moment, a glimmer of understanding erased her fear. She stepped toward the shadow's edge, standing firm as the entity shuddered, momentarily disoriented. "You take joy in fear, but we refuse your darkness. We choose life, love, and light." As she spoke, light from the lantern grew brighter, expanding and filling the entire cabin. It pushed against the shadows, drawing them away from Ethan and Lily. The dark figure hissed, recoiling against the brightness, agonized and thrashing as it separated. "Run," Sarah shouted, her voice a resonating command. She felt the shadows retreat, vacating their place at her children's feet. They moved together, pushing through the cabin and bolting toward the door. Nancy, the old nurse who had told them in hushed tones of darkness and light, had built this sanctuary against evil, a place where shadows lost their hold. Outside, the night air felt different, lighter, even as whispers still rustled like leaves in the trees. The cabin shimmered with a protective glow behind them as they stepped farther away. Sarah held her children close, their hearts still pounding together in rhythm. With every step forward, she felt the heaviness of darkness lift. "We did it, Mom," Ethan cried out, joy shining in his voice, the fear ebbing away. "Yes, we did," Sarah replied with depth and intensity, pulling them closer as they looked at one another, the bond forged brighter than any shadow. They were safe, at least for now. As they melted into the night, the edges of their fears still creeping, but diminished, they understood something monumental. Light has the power to confront darkness. Choice holds the thread of life against despair. Home awaited, and they would carry this truth into dawn. But just as they rounded the turn, the air thickened once more, a chilling whisper creeping across the grass. "We're not finished yet." With dread now settled like dust in Sarah's stomach, she knew the fight was not over. But at least they'd face it together brighter than the dark, as long as they stood united. And there was always tomorrow finally, as the sun began to rise and wash the sky with morning gold. A sliver of hope ignited within her a promise that they would never give in, never play again. No matter the shadows ahead. If you've made it this far, you need to subscribe now to ensure you catch the next electrifying story. Don't let future nightmares escape. Smash that like button if this tale gave you chills. Feed the algorithm hunger. And for the love of suspense, flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about what's next. This is the moment to show support. Share this video with at least 5 friends who crave thrilling conclusions. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. Remember, only true fans can keep the shadows at bay.